Who could resist watching an episode of relaxing and entertaining wilderness construction before going to sleep? It's a blessing for late-night insomniacs, guaranteed to help you drift into a sweet, peaceful sleep. So, grab your phone with about 70% battery left, find the most comfortable position, lie back, and let's watch this satisfying process together. 2 years and 6 months ago, Martin built a treehouse in the forests of Siberia. However, considering thunderstorms and other extreme conditions, living high above the ground wasn't very safe. So Martin decided to build an underground wooden cabin that's partially subterranean, giving him more living options. He immediately sketched out the cabin's design. Once the drawings were complete, Martin packed his luggage and set off right away. At that time, the Siberian forest was already frozen solid and covered in snow, but that didn't dampen his determination to build a new home. After trudging through the snow for nearly 2 hours, Martin finally found a suitable site. Before officially starting construction, he first had to set up a camp. After all, building a shelter is a long process, and in such icy conditions, no piece of equipment can be missing. Once everything was ready, Martin officially began construction. He first roughly marked out the size of the foundation, then started digging downward with a shovel. Because the ground was frozen solid in winter, digging alone was extremely difficult. So Martin called his good friend Tom to help, instantly doubling the work efficiency. What was originally planned as a 2-day foundation job was completed that very night. To reward himself after a hard day's work, Martin prepared a very hearty dinner. After eating and drinking his fill, he decided to turn in early to save energy for the next day. The next morning, the forest was still swept by bitter icy winds, dropping the temperature even further. The pit had completely frozen solid, making further work nearly impossible. To solve this, Martin chopped some dry firewood and lit a fire inside the pit, allowing the frozen soil to thaw so he could dig post holes at the 4 corners of the foundation. Once that was done, all he needed to do was cut logs according to the dimensions in the blueprint. Thanks to the abundance of timber in the winter forest, gathering materials was easy. In no time, Martin collected enough logs and began inserting them into the pit. To ensure logs connected firmly, he carved matching notches into each one. After stacking them, he drove long nails through to secure everything. Although the framework looked simple, its stability was beyond question. To work in more comfortable conditions, Martin returned once the weather warmed up. By then, the snow had melted, but new problems appeared. The melting snow had turned the ground muddy, destabilizing the previously installed framework. With no choice, Martin dismantled it with a heavy heart. The troublesome mud also had to be completely cleared out. As the pit got deeper, the originally planned steps also needed to be extended further downward. After a full morning of non-stop digging, the two of them had expanded the pit significantly. Just as they finished, heavy snow began falling again. Luckily, it didn't last long and didn't affect the pit too much. To prevent collapses, Martin chopped some dry firewood and laid it over the steps for reinforcement. Because the pit was now larger, longer logs were needed. Fortunately, deadwood was everywhere, and with help from friends, efficiency remained high. Soon, they gathered enough logs, and learning from past mistakes, Martin coated the bottoms of all logs with anti-corrosion paint to protect against insects and moisture. The logs were then inserted into the pit and firmly packed with soil at the base. Following the blueprint, the structure was reconstructed step by step. For connections, Martin used extra long, thick iron nails to ensure the frame wouldn't wobble. After setting the main framework, Martin placed waterproof sheeting between the wooden structure and the pit walls. This prevented soil from falling in and blocked ground moisture. The gaps were filled with sand and soil, and the remaining walls were built the same way. With the help of his friends, the construction progressed smoothly, and the cabin soon took shape exactly as planned. They collected many thin wooden slats and laid them across the top as roof shingles, fixing them with nails. A waterproof layer was added, followed by soil, and then another waterproof layer for extra protection. Since it's an underground dwelling, even a little moisture would be uncomfortable, so Martin didn't take any chances. Finally, soil was backfilled over the roof to improve concealment. Now, even if someone passed by, they wouldn't easily notice the cabin. The underground house was now more than halfway complete. The interior was spacious, and Martin had reserved a large window on the front wall. With its north-facing orientation, the lighting inside was excellent. The muddy ground was still a problem, but Martin postponed flooring and instead went to a sawmill to make the window frame. Although the size didn't match perfectly, he solved it by inserting wooden shims and securing everything with screws. An opening window was installed for ventilation, and foam sealant was applied to keep out insects and cold air. Next, Martin drilled holes in the ground and installed a sturdy wooden support beam, securing it to the wall. He also cut an opening for a future fireplace, keeping it from taking up interior space. A chimney hole was drilled straight upward, connecting to the fireplace pipe. With help from his friends, the fireplace was carried inside and connected to the chimney pipe. Then came the flooring. Treated support beams were laid, drainage holes reserved, and wooden planks nailed on top. The immediate space felt more comfortable. For the bed, Martin elevated it with logs to block ground moisture, laid boards on top, and secured them with nails. After testing it out, the comfort was excellent. All wood surfaces were coated with insect-repellent paint for durability. While waiting for the paint to dry, Martin scattered grass seeds around the cabin. Half a month later, he returned to find lush greenery covering the area, making the cabin even more hidden. Back inside, the floors were fully dry. To maximize space, Martin cut an opening under the bed to create a storage cellar. Hinges were added to make a lift-up lid, and food containers were buried below for natural preservation. LED light strips were installed along the ceiling, brightening the interior. For the fireplace area, Martin upgraded the design using red bricks to prevent moisture and improve durability. Despite being an engineer, his brickwork was surprisingly skilled. After reinstalling the fireplace, insulation was added around the chimney, and finally, the chimney was spray painted